Video games are one of the fastest growing mediums out there. The way video games are marketed is absolute genius. And when you look at how some of the major publishers market their games, there is so much that businesses can learn from these promotions. In this video today, I sat down with an ex-marketer from two of the biggest video game publishers out there, EA Games and Warner Brothers Games. And John has played a role in some of the biggest video game launches of all time, from Hogwarts Legacy to some of the Mortal Kombat series. And John has recently made the transition away from major publishers to now supporting smaller studios and independent developers to market their games more effectively on a smaller budget. So if you are a small business owner, a startup looking to gain the competitive edge, you are going to find some of the insights in this video fascinating. Because if you look at some of the fastest growing companies out there today, they don't do what everybody else in their industry does. They look to other industries to be able to disrupt and do things differently, and that's how they get ahead. So I would encourage you to look to other industries like gaming to learn and see what tactics and strategies you can apply to your business. So let's dive straight into it. John, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm excited to dive into this. One, as I'm just a massive gamer myself, but two, I've always felt like there's just a lot of parallels between video game marketing and what businesses are doing for their marketing, but also just a lot of untapped things that businesses don't think about, which actually games do quite well. One of the things I'd love to open up with, John, just as a kind of interesting question here, because you've got a background with some major publishers, right? I saw you worked at like Warner Brothers Games, you worked on like some of the biggest launches and franchises of all time. Like I saw you on like Hogwarts Legacy, you did like some of the Mortal Kombat games as well. How has that, like, what's that experience been like, and what's been the main difference in approach when you're kind of working with these major teams of data scientists and engineers and product teams to then working with more like independent development studios, right? Because I always kind of compare this, it's probably the same as like a small business compared to like these big conglomerates they might be competing with. What's the difference been like, for you when you're working with these smaller studios?
Well, I have to readjust expectations because at a Warner Brothers or at an EA, you're working with some of the very best and most talented people in the industry. You don't get to work at a Warner Brothers or at EA unless you have grinded to get there. Like everyone wants those jobs. Everyone wants to work at those places. They want to work at those big titles. Getting into the industry is extremely challenging. Staying there is even harder. And so you're surrounded by people that are, they're extremely bright. They're very, very talented. And they demand perfection. There's no room for error, right? Like you have to be on point at all times. Transitioning from that to indies, it's different, right? Some of the indies, by the way, like some of them have come from AAA and big studios. So I don't want to blanket them all together, right? So, for example, I talked to somebody just yesterday. Well, he was one of the leads on Cyberpunk, right? And now he's got his own studio. So that's a very different level of conversation because like they understand. We just know what it's like to be in the thick of it, right? Like the grinder that it is, how challenging it is, and like the level of expertise you need to bring to the table. But other studios, they have launched smaller games or no games, and their understanding of the business side is really what's lacking, right? They have great ideas for games, they have great ideas for like innovative gameplay and things that players will love, but when it comes to the business side of it, they don't always think through it, and especially on the marketing side, there is a huge gap of education when it comes to how to market your game effectively. And so, and the resources that are out there are limited, right? So it's part of why I started this business is because I looked in the market and I was wondering, well, who's helping out these indies? Because most agencies are set up to serve AAA, big budgets. They do the fancy trailers, the big launches, the big events, et cetera, et cetera. But where does that leave indies, right? Indies are left thinking, well, I can't afford that. And they're right. They can't afford multi-million dollar retainer fees with agencies. They can't afford that. Okay, so I guess I can do it myself, right? And so what are the resources? They'll go to like a howtomarketyourgame.com with Chris Sikowski, who does workshops, and he has, a lot of helpful information, but they're trying to figure it out. I talked to somebody yesterday, and his knowledge came as far as, well, I watched some YouTube videos of how to market your game, of which there were very few, right? So trying to figure out, like, how do I market a game in a brutally competitive market? Brutally. Okay, how many Steam games came out in 2024? 18,000. There will be Steam games released in the time that you and I talk today. How many mobile games come out? 500 mobile games come out every single day, right? So and it's
exactly
not
the same with businesses as well, right? Like there's
100%,
just so many
it's
popping
not
up left, right, and center, and it's
yeah, dude, at 100%, man. And the thing is, you're not just competing with other games. You're competing with social media, movies, film, sports, everything that wants your attention and wants your money. That's what you're competing with. And so how do you cut through all of that noise? You can do it yourself. I mean, like, some people can do it, right? So there are examples of that. So Schedule 1 came out this year, right? Schedule 1, everyone
that
looked
looks
at that.
really cool. It's been on my wish list for a while, Schedule 1.
Yeah. And guess what that guy did? He probably went to How to Market Your Game and tried to do it himself. And he made, to his credit, he made a game that had a great hook. It was really friendly for streamers. And to his credit, he built up an influencer list and he pitched to influencers and got them to pick it up. And they loved it, right? So he made a game that was very influencer friendly. He connected with influencers. And as a result, I think he made like $3 million, something like that. Like, sold a lot of copies. But indie devs will look at that and go, great, fantastic, I can do this myself, right? But what that developer missed is the opportunity to capitalize on that momentum. So if he had layered in other marketing strategies, that 3 million could have been 5 million, could have been 10 million, right? If he had taken those influencer clips, for example, and leveraged and repurposed that influencer content into paid user acquisition, into newsletters, into press releases, into social media, into other elements, then he could have had more of a lift. And
it's such a good point. We see this all the time with like brands where they invest, decent amount of money into an influencer campaign, into content, and then they post it once, and then they never do anything else with it. It's like, why are we not making this work for us, right? It's like, it's such a waste.
Yep, 100%. But see, that's the thing is, like, a lot of devs go, well, I just need influencers to pick up the game, right? I just need influencers. I just need influencers to play the game, and then everything will, I'll bring the community, and everyone will want to play it, and the game will go viral, and yada, 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 yada. But first of all, getting influencers to pick up your game is extremely challenging. Most of them want money. Most of them aren't going to stream your game for free, right? And most of them are being pitched relentlessly by you and every other game studio that's out there, right? So how do you focus that, right? How are you effectively using your time and energy, and how are you making the most of your marketing efforts? And the thing is that studios will often view marketing as a box to check. They don't think through the strategy,
like a one and done type thing.
Exactly. They go, okay, so I made the game, I got the art, we QA'd it. Okay, game's solid. Oh, now we need to do marketing, right? Okay. I think I need a press release. Okay, we're gonna get a press release, and then we've done our marketing. Hooray! Right? That's it. We did the marketing. We're done, right? No, no. Tom, when do you think most studios should start their marketing efforts?
Oh, like way ahead of time, I would have said. Like probably one of the first things you want to do, right? Like, I mean, if I was going to make a game, I would probably be documenting the whole journey of making that game. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but like, Yeah, and this is, I see this with businesses all the time. Like they start up and then it's like, okay, cool. Now we think about marketing. It's like, well, what about all that time before when you could have been building a wait list? You could have been validating this idea and testing it, you know?
Yeah, it's before you write a single line of code. Why is that? Because are you trying to make a game or are you trying to build a sustainable business? If you have a startup and you have a business, what do? You find the problem in the market, you size the market, and then you build a product for it, right? If you make another, do you know how many roguelite Balatro style card games I've seen? Countless.
I can imagine.
Right? Okay, dude. Well, congratulations. You've made one of 5,000 other titles that are doing the same thing, right? Like, and now you've invested like 2 years of development time into this. Like, so it's why when you're making a game, it's what Schedule One did, right? They found something that was highly streamable, that would resonate well with the audience, and they built a game around it. So cool. You want to make a great game? I applaud you. But before you start spending time and money and years developing a game, well, you should understand what the market's going to look like and forecast how much money you're going to make. So you have a better sense of, well, how much should I spend on an artist? How much should I spend on a designer? How much should I spend on my marketing? Right? Like
what kind of signals would you be looking for, John? Like, so you mentioned, like, they should do it before they've even written a line of code. Like, what would they be looking for to kind of validate whether they've got something, or to your point, like where they should be investing their kind of marketing dollars?
You want to know this? Want to know the cheat code? The cheat code is free, right? Cheat code's free. So now this is going to be controversial to some people. Because in the game industry, there's two letters that scare the crap out of people, right? AI. Okay? Now, people see AI, before I get on a tangent, right? People see AI, they're terrified of it. They think it's going to take their jobs. They think that it's going to replace them. It's AI slop. It's blah, 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 blah. The truth is, I have spoken to studios that spend months researching in spreadsheets and pulling articles, and they pay for studies and yada, 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 yada. But guess what? There's tools available today like Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, that offer deep research. And deep research, you can assign roles. I want you to be an expert marketing analyst to accurately test the viability of my product idea. Here's the product. Okay, here's what I want you to uncover. And away you go. And you'd be amazed at how accurate those reports are. I have stress tested them. I've spent a career in marketing, and I've shown it to my peers, and they're blown away. I've shown it to other marketing people. They're blown away. They want to work with us because of it, right? Because it's not replacing the work that we're doing. But do you know how much one of those market research studies would cost traditionally with an agency? $15,000. Minimum. You can do it with some prompts and a $20 ChatGPT subscription, $20 Gemini subscription.
It's wild.
And you can probably get 90% of the way there. Is it going to be perfect? No. Should you validate and fact check? 100. But the truth is, like, hey, there's resources available to make this a lot easier for you. And that should be that should be the very first thing you do, right? I got a game idea, cool. Let's do some research. Let's see if there's market out there. So it can do things like scrape Steam data, scrape community sentiment. Wow. It can look at tags. It can look at the amount of tags to find genre fit. I ran deep research, by the way, to find underserved games that there's a lot of demand in. And I found them. And I made a post about it on LinkedIn, by the way, and I had people going, I want to invest. John, you should make a studio. I'm like, I got no interest. I don't know. I want to make a studio. God bless the people that do. I'm great at selling games, not making them.
Yeah. It's funny. We've actually been using AI a lot more as well for sentiment analysis, and like Reddit is a place that I love because Reddit. I think people go to Reddit for these like unbiased, unfiltered opinions on things. So people tend to be much more honest because of its anonymous nature. So it's such a great place at doing that kind of market and sentiment analysis. And I really think, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like it's such a kind of just using AI for those purposes is just so underutilized because you can uncover so much insight from them.
Dude, deep research will scrape all
Yeah,
of Reddit. It'll scrape it.
yeah,
It'll find all of that and it'll cite the sources. And believe you me,
yeah.
like Reddit, the amount of data and information that Reddit has is so valuable. It's why they went public and started serving ads, right?
Yeah.
They know. They know how valuable that data is. And it's how long has Reddit been around, right? Like, I mean, more than a decade, 15, 20 years, something like that. Like, they've been around a long time.
It's
And
an absolute gold mine.
It is, but sometimes stuff gets buried at Reddit, right? Like, it's not understood,
True.
doesn't resonate with the subreddit, but it's still valuable and helpful information. Believe you me, I know. Like, in the early days of this business, I started to post on Reddit, and people are, especially devs, are so skeptical of marketing. They're incredibly skeptical. I made the mistake, by the way, like when I disclaimer AI, I'll tell you my experiences. When I first started this, I thought, oh, well, holy cow, look at what we can do with AI, because I've been using it in Warner Brothers. For the last year, I've been using LLMs to come up with creative concepting, audiences, messages, and you would be astonished at how well it works. And because we were using owned systems, so we did cross promotions. So this means when you booted up Mortal Kombat, we would negatively target and know what you the player owned or what you did not. We based it off entitlement. So, for example, if there was DLC for Mortal Kombat on sale and you didn't own it, we would serve you a promotion when you booted the game and said, hey, this thing that you do not own, you're playing this game, go download it, it's on sale. Or when the new Mortal Kombat came out, we said, hey, Mortal Kombat 11 players, there's a brand new Mortal Kombat game coming out. You don't own it, go buy it, right? Extremely effective. But it awarded us the opportunity to not have to allocate a lot of ad spend and to test some of these concepts. So what that unlocked for me is like, oh, we can use like generative AI to come up with concepting. Now, we had real artists do the actual work, but what we found was ChatGPT, this is going to blow your mind. Remember I told you, we had the very best and brightest in the industry. And we had data scientists, we had UA people, we had literally people with doctorates in experimentation and advertisement. And we had them in a meeting. We had a weekly meeting, and we would come up with ideas. And we would say, hey, like, we're trying to do this new promotion. What are some ideas that we have that we think will resonate? What's the hypothesis behind it? And we all came up with a list. And I said, okay, well, let's take these ideas. Let's give the same context to ChatGPT. And let's see what it thinks will win, and let's have it generate a few more concepts. So it did. It took all the concepts humans came up with, it generated more, and then I ran another interesting experiment where I said, okay, ChatGPT, now I want you to predict which one will have the highest click-through rate and give a reason why. And before I exposed what that was to the group, I had all the humans do the same experiment. Okay, everyone, smartest people in the industry, what do you think is going to drive the highest click-through rates? Okay, I think this. Okay, cool. Here's what we found, is that ChatGPT not only generated the winning creative, it accurately predicted the winning creative above all the other humans. And you know what happened? 5x our revenue. 5x.
Crazy.
5 times our revenue. So all these people that are skeptical, like, oh no, AI, my guys, listen. If you're not leveraging this stuff, you're gonna get smoked. You're gonna get smoked in the industry, right? Like this table stakes. And so we've
Yeah,
been doing
but I
that
guess
for the last year.
an important disclaimer is like you mentioned before about using deep research, doing that sentiment analysis, like that all you're probably feeding it that context beforehand, right? It's not like you're saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, just come up with some cool concept," because that's what most people would do, right?
Oh
They
yeah.
would just give it a basic prompt and then be like, "Oh, it's not working, it's crap."
Well, exactly. Like the paintbrush is only as good as the painter, right? And so if you have someone with a lot of knowledge about effective marketing strategy, and then you use an LLM to augment that, oh baby, like it's strong and it's powerful. And I've seen it time and time again. And by the way, Warner Brothers, oh, they're scared of AI. Hollywood is. They had the writer strike, the actor strike over AI. So like I had to do this in hushed secrets and meetings, right? And like we had to be very, very careful about the data and sensitivity and et cetera, because it scared people. But the truth is like, look, there's no going back. But I disclaimer in the way that like, look, I don't view AI as a tool to replace humans. That's short-sighted. There are executives and CEOs that are saying, oh, we're going to get rid of humans and replace with LM. Wrong. Okay, you're wrong. You're going to fail. What you need to do is empower your people to use LLMs, and then that's the superpower right there. So
Yeah.
and all this to come back is like when I started out, I said, oh man, like as a marketer, this is the differentiator. Like we can take our knowledge and expertise, we can use LLM to like turbocharge our work and like come up with insane results. And this is going to disrupt the game industry. And I started out and I'm like, okay. And I posted on Reddit. I'm like, listen, guys, same thing I said to you. Hey, guys, you should be using LLMs. Like, this stuff is really going to help you with your marketing efforts. And you know what happened? Downvote to hell. They hated it. They just, oh man, did I get ripped to shreds. Got ripped to shreds. They hated it. Hated it. And I started talking to people. I'm like, well, guys, like, you don't understand. And I'd go to events here in Orlando. I'd go to events and talk to devs in person. I had the same conversation. I'm like, guys, listen, it's marketing. We're using AI in really insane ways. Like, it can really help you. And then instantly, like, eh. So you know what happened as a result? I said, okay, well, guess what we're going to do? What I realized is that studios don't understand marketing to begin with. So when you layer on AI, it just
gets even more
confuses the
scary.
message. It's like, wait a minute, like I don't want generative AI slop representing my game. That's not what we're doing. We have a real creative director who made the winning art for Hogwarts Legacy and Mortal Kombat, right? She is art. We have a real human being who's extremely talented who's making the art for it. Do not worry, right? But what
Augmentation, I think, is the key word, right? It's kind of like like you said earlier, you're not replacing, you're augmenting.
Yeah, 100. So the net result was I took AI out of all of our messaging. If you look at our website, those two letters do not come together. And why? Because, look, who cares? At the end of the day, who cares how we're getting there? Who cares how the sausage is made as long as it tastes good, right? And so
I think even that in itself, that's actually a really good. I just want to highlight that, John. Like, I think that is quite an important marketing lesson in itself. In that you have to, like, if you know that your audience are being put off by a different message, don't try and force it down their throat just because you're using it. Just like, you can still use it, and as you do, you're still going to use it, but you're just choosing not to mention it, because you're absolutely right. There are some things where people will just shut down, they'll put their guard up, and you just can't talk to them anymore. Like, as soon as you've said the word AI, that's it. They're no longer listening to you. So I think that in itself is actually like a really important message for anyone listening to remember, not to, like, if there are certain things that your audience don't want to hear, like, don't try and force it on them. One thing I am really curious to hear from your perspective, John, and how you approach this in the game industry is something I see with like businesses is there's this, I think, over-reliance and over-obsession with data, especially when it comes to attribution. So for example, there's like, there's all these like attribution tracking platforms out there, and it's like, they'll tell you the last click and the first click attribution of like what's generating you results. The problem with that, as we know, that's not how people like it's such a kind of linear partial view of how people actually discover games or businesses, right? There are so many touch points in any discovery process that can't be attributed. It might be real one-on-one conversations. It might be forums that just aren't being tracked. And, it might be a text message between friends. Someone's sharing a screenshot of something in WhatsApp. Like, there's all these different things. How do you guys think through, or like, how did you like Warner Brothers, for example? How did you guys like approach attribution when it comes to like what's working and what's not, and not let that cloud your kind of your judgments in terms of how should we be promoting the game, kind of thing?
Yeah. So, I mean, great question. So the deep truth is attribution is hard for the exact reasons that you described. If I see a commercial on television and that makes me want to buy it, but I don't, I wait till I see an ad on Facebook or whatever to click. Like, which one gets attribution for that? If I see a press release or an influencer, but then they go through the store and click and make a purchase, who gets attribution for that? And so like the buzzword right now are MMM. So like marketing mixed models, media mixed modeling. Google just came out with one a couple months ago. There's platforms like GameSite. Shout out to GameSite. We use them at Warner Brothers to directionally give some level of attribution, but that's not a blocker and should not be a blocker, right? Like at the end of the day, as a performance marketer, what do I care about? What creatives that we can directly attribute to, like a click? So, for example, like what was it? This creative, or that creative that made the user click through and go to the store, right? That's a very clean signal. It's not as easy to measure that, right, on like social media. Sure, you can put like Bitly trackers or whatever, but like only gets you. It's hard. You can't properly like A/B test. Where you can do that in paid user acquisition. It's why that we're more focused on that, since it's underserved in the indie space, and it's easier to draw a line between like, okay, like we had these 20 different creatives, which ones performed well, which ones performed bad, and so like directionally we can tell from a click-through rate, and then like revenue, right, like a top line revenue of, okay, like we turned a campaign on and we see the top line revenue increased by X amount, and you can get really granular on that stuff, but some people, like that should not be a blocker in my mind of like, okay, let's take the data that we have, the attribution we have, what can we track, and let's just do the best with what we have. And to me, like the creative testing is super important because I've seen firsthand what difference it can make between 3 words versus 4 words versus a color versus a placement of an icon or a call to action or whatever it is. And those little changes may equal a 1 to 2% incremental lift in click-through rates, but that 1 to 2% on a larger scale can equal thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference, right? So obviously, like, you want to optimize for that. And another thing that I think more studios should do is, and like a service that we offer is testing capsule art. You can't A/B test properly capsule art in Steam, but Steam is like that's the most important place you need to optimize. If your Steam page sucks, no one's gonna buy, no one's gonna click through. It's where people discover your games in most instances. So how do you know that your capsule art is really the most effective? Well, you can do a small UA test. You don't need to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. Give me $500 and a week, and we'll get you good signal on what capsule art is working versus another. That's it. And what does that mean, right? What does a small scale test mean for you and your data? It means that if you have a high degree of confidence that one capsule art is going to outperform another, you run that baby. You let that thing go, right? And without that, you're flying blind. You're going off gut. You're going off gut, and that's what so many people do. Even marketers are like, well, I feel good about this creative. I like this one, or this one has too many words. Man, the endless debates, it drives me nuts. It's like, hey guys, I cool idea, bro. Test it. Test it.
Yeah.
Test that thing. Like whatever your assumption is, it's just that. It's a thesis. It's a hypothesis. Test that thing.
And on that point, because I think it's like you said, and I think that's quite interesting as well. It sounds like quite a kind of balanced way to approach it. But from what I hear from what you're saying there is you're kind of looking at, okay, things like signals, like the click data and the click throughs, and then just like, what's the top line revenue generated, as opposed to, because very often what I've seen before is where, let's say for example, a brand, a business, a studio, they're running like multiple different channels, right? They look at the attribution data and it's like, okay, we've got all this attributed revenue from Meta and all the other ones there's no attributed revenue. So they turn off all those other channels only to find that their revenue then drops off a cliff, because it might be that those other channels were playing a big part in awareness, right? And that's to your point. It's more about thinking like, are we actually getting clicks? Are we actually getting interactions? Because that's just another touch point at the end of the day.
Dude, you realize like the psychology, the mentality behind all the attribution, like hand waving stuff. It's because they're all trying to defend their jobs and show value.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
It is. How does a PR agency tell you should hire us and spend money with us? How does an internal PR team prove that they're worth keeping around? Oh, because we have this model and we have all this attribution and we had all these news pickups, and or if you're an influencer, oh, we have all these hundreds of thousands of impressions and blah 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 blah. Did it make money? Did the game make money? Yes or no? Okay, like like you can test in each of those channels different strategies that are effective. You can and should. But if you're trying to get really, really, really granular on like, did this one activation drive the most amount of revenue, or did this one marketing channel or this ad spend, was it TikTok, was it, sure you can look directionally, but like the level of granularity that some folks go to, it's like, listen, attribution is tough, really, really tough. Yeah. Take the data that you have and test and optimize to the best of your ability. I don't think there's any there should not be any doubt that marketing as a function drives sales. That is the number one function of marketing. That is why marketing exists, is to drive sales. That's it. Right? So like trying to defend like each thing, it's just getting too like in the weeds. Like, yes, you can do, yes, you should optimize. Like, please don't take it as me trying to discount any of that, but it's also, at the end of the day, are we making the game money or not?
Yeah. And I think it kind of highlights, like you did a post the other day, I think, or I don't know if it was a comment you left, where you were talking about just like this full funnel marketing approach. And I think that's so overlooked in that, like, with this obsession of attribution, what you end up doing is you naturally end up kind of over optimizing on the bottom of funnel, but you're kind of missing all of those critical touch points that are actually coming before, that are just as, if not even more important, right? How do you kind of think through that? If you were kind of like approached by a studio, how would you think through like a full funnel strategy? Like what are some of the kind of processes you go through to formulate that?
It's tough with indies because indies are limited by budget, right? Like in an ideal world, and this is why so many indies want to go to publishers, because at a publisher, well, they got a full stack marketing team where they can do they can do all the functions, right? Now, I'm a little biased, like they're not all super effective, but the truth is like indies they can't afford a full marketing team in most instances, right? They can't afford to do fully integrated CRM systems, right? They can't afford to do like large UA campaigns. They can't afford to hire a whole, social media team. They can't afford to like do a really high touch like affiliate program with influencers, right? Like it's tough. It's a lot of work. So for me with indies, it's like, okay, the very first thing I do is I need to understand like where you're at. Are you trying to... They're all trying to do the same thing. They're either trying to secure funding through VC, investors, or they're trying to go to publishers to get them to pay, or in some instances they're trying to do it themselves and they either have money to invest or they go to the Kickstarter route. So understanding where are you at, then understanding where is your budget at right now. For me, this is another inherent problem in the indie industry. They don't know where to go, they don't know who to talk to, they don't know what they need the most. And so when they come to us, I'm first going to understand, okay, well, what are your goals? What's the game? What are you trying to do? And then let's get the most bang for your buck, right? Like if you only have X amount of dollars, then let's do what we believe can drive the most amount of results. So you have case study and momentum, and you can then go, if you're going to investors, if you're going to publishers, it's no longer, hey, we got a great game, and look, it's all these genres, and we have this team behind us, and I've seen the pitches. And I've heard from investors, what do they lack? They lack business acumen. And so what I want to provide is, let's do a case study. Let's run a small scale campaign. Let's validate the marketability of your game, and let's build a forecast. Right? This is what they do at the big publishers. They forecast out how much money a game's going to be, how much money it's going to make in order to greenlight it. Before a Warner Brothers or an EA or an Ubisoft or a Microsoft decides to greenlight a game, they need to understand how much money it can make. And so,
is there data, I have never even looked into this, but I guess there's kind of benchmark data in terms of when someone wish lists a game on Steam, for example, how many of those will go on to then purchase?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, there's benchmarks, there's so much data available to strengthen your case and make it more defensible. That's another thing I've heard from investors. They say, we have these people come and they say, oh, we're going to make all this money, but they don't understand the P&Ls, right? They don't understand, okay, how much is the first party going to take? How much do you have to pay for legal, HR, hiring, taxes, right? There's all these things that are not accounted for in this modeling. And guess what? We have expertise there, and we can use that scary word like AI and LLMs to help parse the data and analyze said data in order to build a forecast model that you can feel really good about, and investors and publishers can feel really good about. Okay, cool. These guys are for real. They're not just coming with hopes and dreams and sunshines and rainbows. They're coming with receipts, right? That's a much different conversation. Who do you think they're going to invest their precious dollars? You know how tight it is in the industry right now. It's very, very tight. Investment's very, very tight. It was very loose in 2022, and industry had challenges, and now investors are scared. They're scared. They shouldn't be. The industry's still strong as ever. It's still making more money than ever, right? It's just what I'm seeing at the top, and it's why I started this company, is AAA is struggling. AAA has been overly reliant on retailers, physical retailers like GameStops, Walmarts, etc., to drive sales. They've gone the Hollywood route, and they cling to known IP and sequels and remakes and remasters. And there's 5, 6, 7 year development cycles. When did GTA 5 come out?
Right?
GTA 5 came out, what, in 2012?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Still not, how long is that development cycle? Meanwhile, indies, man, they can bang out a game in a day if they wanted to, right? I did a case study on Baby in Yellow, got 100 million downloads. That was made in a game jam over a weekend, right? Come on, right? It's just...
That's a good point, actually. What are some of because you've done a few of these, kind of dissecting different, strategies and things that you've seen from other, indies. What are some of the most kind of innovative or just smart ways of kind of getting a game out there on a budget, or just in an efficient way, let's say? What are some of the smartest kind of implementations you've seen there?
It's a really good question. It all starts with product, right? It's the 4 P's of marketing. So you need to make sure. That's why we go back to the research, right? And this is why Baby in Yellow did well, because when they were making the game, they were doing the game jam. They made it with the intention of having it highly streamable, right? Like they knew that like horror games performed really well on streamers. They knew that like the hook, like the kitschy elements to it, the unique elements to it would make a recipe that would be easily shareable, right? So it all starts and ends with research and understanding the market and understanding the audience and making a game and a product that fits a need that's underserved. Don't make another card game, please, for the love of God. If I see another roguelike Balatro ripoff, I'm going to scream, right? Like, it's how many of these do we need? And then as far as like, the other part is like on the budget, it's well, again, like understanding your budget and making the most of it. Like if I definitely feel that the easiest levers to pull as far as user acquisition is, well, influencer marketing is effective, paid UA, super effective. Social media is often cited by developers as, I just need a following on TikTok, or I just need a following on Reddit, or I need a social media following. But the pitfall that they fall into is, well, on those channels, it's more so for nurturing the leads that you already have, the players that you already have. It's keeping them in your ecosystem, right? Telling them when you have new updates, telling them when you have a game coming out, telling them when you have a demo that's about to release, like informing them. And you're beholden, by the way, to those platforms' algorithms. So if your content doesn't hit, right, then it's not seen. And it's also, especially in the case of like a TikTok, it's not evergreen. It's just whoop, whoop, scroll, and bye, right? You spend all that effort like making that video and it's just gone. It's just gone. And like, unless you're devoting an insane amount of time to social media to build that following, like, and also it should just be one of multiple channels. So I think like the combination I would tell developers, like if you're really trying to go on a budget, like yes, you need a social media following. Yes, you need a Discord. You need a strategy so you're not in the weeds or just trying to figure it out. You have a content roadmap. You have a strategy. You measure and optimize. Like my following on LinkedIn, right? Like I went from 800 connections 3 months ago to now I'm at 3,000, and I'm now in the top 1% of the game industry in LinkedIn. I went from getting a couple hundred impressions per post to my Balatro post had 200,000 impressions. I'm at about 700,000 impressions since I started from nothing. How did I do that? I have never done B2B marketing in my life. I've never done it. Goes back to LLMs, baby, right? Like I came up with a strategy using LLMs of like, well, Warner Brothers can't know that I'm working on this business. Sorry, WB, if you're watching. They told me not to do it. I had to be very strategic about how I would get clients. It told me I need to do thought leadership on Reddit, LinkedIn, and Discord. Where do you think my first 3 clients came from? And the same thing for studios. It's like if you're trying to build it, what worked for me is, well, yeah, I use LLMs. Yeah, I came up with content strategy. I'm also a marketer, so I kind of know like a starting point of like, what things to do. But I measured and optimized every week. I'd look at my posts and go, okay, like what worked, what didn't, what are the signals? How can I fix? And I'm still doing that, by the way. Like some of my posts hit, some of them don't. And well, that's marketing, right?
I think one of the things I will say as well, because we've got a lot of clients in the B2B space, and I think something I can say that you have done particularly well. I think people often approach thought leadership in the wrong way, where they think thought leadership is just, they kind of look at what other people call thought leadership and they copy it and they just try and change it slightly. You give your own, and you might be using LLMs to kind of do the research, but then you're giving your own unique perspective on different games or different marketing campaigns that you've seen. Like that is thought leadership, where John is telling me like how he views this and why he views it that way, as opposed to just like trying to do some thought leadership isn't giving a motivational quote. I don't know where this came from. People seem to think thought leadership is giving these like inspirational quotes. It's like, no, that's not thought leadership.
it's value, it's value add. So for me, it's
Exactly.
like, and I've had to learn, right? I'm still learning what value, what's valuable, what's not, what content
Mm.
works, what doesn't. But it's test and optimize, find out what works. For me, like the breakout was over a conversation I had over some Mexican food with my wife, where we were talking about Expedition 33. She knew that I had just started this. I was just starting this business, and I was just thinking through it. And she said, Expedition 33, like, they could have used your help. They didn't have any marketing. And I just laughed. I'm like, of course they had marketing. Like, like I'm no dummy. Like, I know that, like, you don't have that level. So you don't sell 1 million copies in 24 hours
Mm.
without marketing. It does not happen, right? Like, it's just crazy. Like even Schedule One, like they had marketing, right? You don't just put a game out there and you get 1 million downloads. It doesn't happen. So I said, okay, yeah, well, that's actually like I know that that's like the mindset of some devs is like, oh, I just need to make a great game. So I made a post about it and did well, and it started to get momentum, and like it came into my head. I'm like, you know what? I've had other conversations. You know what? These studios, like everyone wants to be the next Balatro. They all want to be the next Balatro. I need to make a post about that. And I
Mm.
banged out a post, but like you said, it was like my thoughts and conversations I've had with people, with studios. I'm like, hey, what really matters to them, right? Like, what do they care about? Like, for me, it's what I want to do is educate folks of like, hey, look, yeah, do I want you to hire us? Of course. But how do I get that? How do I show that I know what I'm talking about? Is here's free strategy. Here's free thoughts. Here's things that other people are doing that you can apply to your own game. I am
Yep.
so happy to share that because it's like it takes this black box of marketing to studios that they don't know what to do or what's effective. They don't know how Balatro became Balatro, and I tell them, here's what they did. And you know who's one of my biggest followers who likes I made another Balatro post this morning who likes all of my Balatro stuff? The CEO of the publisher for Balatro. He
That's
funded the
awesome.
game, right? He loves my content, right? But it's like it tells you
That's
that
crazy.
research and stuff that I pulled is legit
Mm.
because if the CEO of the freaking publisher loves it, he knows that I'm not BSing. He knows that it's legit, right? But I
Yeah.
want to educate developers to tell them, look, guys, like here's some things, and what most of them will probably recognize is like, hey, I'm busy making a game. I could use some help. I could use some expertise. Great, we'll help you. If some of that is, if some of these like case studies and strategies you want to do yourself, and that moves the needle for you, hooray, fantastic. Like, there's no way that there's so you know how many games come out. I told you at the top, like so many games. There's no way that we can work with everyone, and there's frankly not enough services in this field that can help all those games. So like we're
Mm.
already, my biggest fear right now isn't are we going to get work. My biggest fear is can we handle it? I don't want to take on too much, right? Like I want our studios, our developers that we work with are very precious to me, and I want to make sure that we can deliver all these things that I'm talking about. And we're doing it,
Yeah.
right? We're doing it really, really well, but I'm like trying to be like, okay, like guys, look, let us get our feet wet first, like before we start taking everybody
Yeah.
on, because it's an exciting time, man. And like I'm very, very bullish on the game industry. I'm very, very bullish on indies. I think that there's so much money to be made, so much money to be had. The thing that's going to unlock that is these really bright people that come up with these great game concepts, these great, brilliant, wonderful, and beautiful games that they poured their hearts and souls into. All they need is some business love and some effective strategy and business acumen to take that wonderful idea into a moneymaker. Like,
Mm.
make a studio. Like, if at the end of the day, these studios that we're working with become sustainable businesses where they get to hire people and bring more people in the industry and give more people a chance, do you know how happy that would make me? I would be delighted. That's what I want.
Yeah, I mean,
It pains me.
even for me as like just as a gamer, like and selfishly, like there are so many there's so many like indie games that I love where I think like shit, I found out about them just by chance, not through like intentional marketing, and I'm kind of like, man. And actually, to your point earlier about social media, it's funny because the only like studios or developers I follow on social media are indies, because I know if it's a AAA game, I'm going to hear about it through some like website or some mainstream outlet anyway, so I don't really care. I don't need to follow those, you know, publishers or developers. But like, you know, like Thunder Lotus, who did Spiritfarer, like I love those guys. I love their games that they've done. And like even like Annapurna, I think they're more of like a publisher now than, I think they had a development arm as well. But like just the games that they put out and the studios they work with, they're so unique. And I just love, so I follow them just because I want to be in the know. But I'm just like, I'm scared that otherwise I won't see them, to your point, right? Because, and actually that kind of brings me on to another like final question that I wanted to ask you, John, as well, is like, when it comes to you working with these indies, you mentioned earlier like a big thing is kind of figuring out, like going back to the basics and like, who is this game ultimately for? How would you kind of define from like, if there's a certain, let's say like a cozy gamer, for example, I don't know, something like My Time at Sandrock or Stardew Valley, even though it's become like a huge success now, like how do you kind of pick that like a niche audience and then choose where to target them or where to reach them?
Great question. So every game is different, every genre is different, and as a result, the audience is different. Like your cozy gamers that you're referring to are different than your core gamers or your Call of Duty players or your shooter players, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like you got to meet them where they're at, right? So not only do you need to understand what channels they're in. So check this out. Cozy gamers, you know what's often overlooked? Facebook groups. Why? Why? Because guess who's in Facebook groups? Moms. They love cozy games. They love it. They're so stressed out of their day to day. They want to go and play a cozy game, chill out, and relax. Those groups go wild. They are begging. I have been in those groups. My wife loves cozy games, so I've been in those groups. They die when there's a new cozy game that comes out. They eat it up. They love it. They say, please give us more cozy games. You know how many communities are like that? There's so many. Dude, the Souls community, they love Souls games. They love it. They're like, please, 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 please give us more. Please give us more. We want more. We want more. But it's not just knowing where they're at. It's knowing how to talk to them. Because if you come in and you try to shoehorn something that's not organic, that doesn't speak their language, that's not going to work, right? Like, it's like, what's that movie? Like Billy Madison, the character comes in and is like, how you doing, kids? And he goes in the high school and he's dressed like, dressed like a kid, but he's an old man, and it's nearly out of place. Like, how you doing, fellow kids? Like, it's the same thing. Like, if you're a marketer or trying to be, you go into those communities, you're like, how do you do, fellow cozy gamers? Like, just out of place. It needs to be true to the lingo. It needs to be true to their mindset. It needs to feel authentic, because in a world of so much marketing and advertisements and slogans and call to actions, the reason that influencers are so successful and why that industry has grown so much is because it's authentic. Because people see that authenticity and they resonate with it. So you need to be authentic and true to the community and make it feel like you're one of them. It's the same thing I've done with my business. Is like, I truly am a gamer. I'm a hardcore gamer. I've been a gamer my whole life. And the very first thing I did as I started this out was, what's the language of devs? One of my advisors, by the way, he is a dev. He's been a developer for 30 years. He's built teams at Zynga and Blizzard, etc. Why did I bring him on? Well, he's a great, wonderful person if he's listening. But part of it also is like, I wanted the perspective of the developer. I wanted to know what they liked, what they didn't like, what was cringe to them in the world of marketing. And it's the same thing with the game. Like, understand where they're at and go be part of that community. Yeah, you can run ads, and you should run ads so they can see it, but even those ads should feel organic. They should feel real. Not like, hey, go buy this thing. Go buy this thing right now. No. It's, hey, person, we feel you. We know that you are hungry for this type of game. And good news, it's out now. And guess what?